everybody. Welcome back to Ash and Alex Do Scientology. This is a crossover between, let's say you first this time.
Apostate Alex. Hi.
Hi. We
Hi.
all know and love Alex, but just in case you are joining in at a later date and making your way back, well, it makes more sense if you do it the other way. But hey, some people also recently told me that they like to listen to the end of things first because it gives them less anxiety listening to the rest of it, which is, I wouldn't like that. I would feel like it would spoil the surprise for me. But I understand that everybody has different ways of doing things.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're one of those, yeah.
I was going to say, like, we kind of dissected the bridge in previous episodes, like episodes 1 to 7, we're going up the bridge to total freedom, and it kind of makes sense to listen to that chronologically. But from this point onwards, we're going to be doing more topics and discussion points that aren't necessarily a story thing you have to follow step by step. So from this point, if you miss a week and then, whatever, it's not like the next episode won't make any sense. So it's also cool.
True.
If you're just joining us and you're new to the podcast, welcome.
Hello. Or new to the channel.
Or new to the channel. Yeah, if you're watching on YouTube, if you're watching on my channel, go and check out Ash's podcast, That's So Fucked Up, because she does loads of cool content about cults and coercive groups and conspiracy theories and murderers and all sorts. So if you're not already following her on your favorite podcast platform, go and do that now.
And if you're sitting here thinking, well, it's mostly cults that are my jam. Well, guess what, my friends? I have almost 50 episodes about cults and coercive groups because my jams are extensive, but one of my biggest fucking jams is cults and spreading the word about high control and coercive groups and how fucking dangerous they are. And like, let's let the people know. I mean, like, share, and subscribe, not just for our benefit, but for the benefit of society, and understanding how bad groups like Scientology and fucking Jesus, I mean, the list could go on, but there's a lot of bad groups out there, you guys. And Scientology is one that I'm passionate about, that I talk about with Alex here. But MLMs, fucking Greek life, everything, any high control coercive group, I am into talking about it. So I've got a lot of that on my channel. And if you are here on my podcast listening, then make sure you go and check out Alex's YouTube channel. Apostate Alex is his name. YouTube is his game. He's the former director of book sales at the Church of Scientology in London. I'm a true crime podcaster who, I could say I don't know anything about Scientology, but now I kind of do. I would say I'm certified OT8, but I'm also an SP.
I mean, if you're certified OT8, that means you believe and agree with everything that we talked about in the last episode. So
okay, fine. I'm not certified, but I've now received all of the technology of OT8. Is that correct?
And you haven't died of pneumonia.
Well, weirdly, I did, and I pulled...
And you came back to life as a spiritual being.
Yeah.
You pulled an LRH. You've moved on to Target 2.
Obviously. It's weird that I had to even explain that to you, but... This is Ash and
Alex Do
Scientology!
We tried to make it work. It worked.
I think we can do it.
We did it. Welcome, everybody.
I don't even think we can do it. I know we did it because we did.
But we're doing it. Doing it well.
Do you guys like our theme
doing
song?
Scientology well.
Let us know in the comments.
I think it's great.
I love it.
So, for those of you just joining us, in the last episode, we did OT8, which is the top of the bridge that you can get to total freedom. It's the final step on the bridge. At this point, you are supposed to be being at cause. The end phenomena of OT8 is Are you ready for this? Because we didn't cover this in the
No.
last episode.
Oh, I was gonna say, wait, don't tell them. You have to listen to OT. You have to listen to episode 7 if you want to get the technology from
Go back
OT8.
and listen to the story. It's fucking wild. And once you've done that, right? So once you've finished OT8, the end phenomena of the final step of the bridge is now you know who you are not.
Well, I know for sure I can't say who I'm not if I go through a checklist. Um, okay, hold on. Stop it.
So
Stop it right now.
it's the same shit that they've pulled at every other level up
Oh,
until
I
this point, right?
know.
So you get to the end of OT8 and they go, right, so now you know who you are not. You are now ready to start figuring out who you actually are.
So you
But
get
unfortunately, the next level doesn't exist.
that's
So
not cool.
you get to the top of the bridge, you spent well over $1 million. At this point, auditing is costing you over $800 an hour to do, right? At this point on the bridge, you are tons of money and tons of time into this thing. And they say, cool, now you know who you are not. You're ready to do the next level where you find out who you really are. But we can't release, this is what they tell you, we can't release the next level. OT9 and 10 will be released when, and this goalpost has moved several times since David Miscavige took over the church. It initially was when all orgs around the world are St. Hill size. Now, St. Hill is the UK headquarters of the Church of Scientology. L. Ron Hubbard used to live here in the UK. In the 60s, he built a castle called St. Hill, and there's a manor house and everything. And it was like Scientology's heyday, right? The most number of Scientologists is succeeding really well. There are loads of people going up the bridge and all of this. And so St. Hill size is kind of the idea of where you want to get all of the orgs in the world. You want them to all be busy. You want them to be packed with lots of people. You want to be learning lots and lots of people getting interested in Scientology. So the goalpost used to be when all organizations around the world are St. Hill size, then we'll release OT9 and 10. And then David Miscavige, the current leader of the church, came up with this ideal org program where he's renovating all of the organizations and buying these big, lovely old buildings and refurbishing them that are, 50,000 square foot or something ridiculous like this. And, they're all lavish buildings that look nice and impressive, because a lot of churches around the world are just like on a strip mall, like a little hole in the wall type shop almost. So
Those
he
ones
wants
are weird.
Yeah, well, he wants all churches to be these lovely, lavish buildings. So for the last 15, 20 years, he's been buying these buildings and renovating them. And the current thing that Scientologists are told is when all orgs around the world are ideal, that's when they can release OT9 and 10. But unfortunately, Scientology is shrinking. There's less Scientologists here on planet Earth than there ever has been before. And there's not enough money going in to renovate all of these buildings, because each org has to pay for their own building to be renovated. So Scientology will buy, right, a big building, and then it will sit there empty for 15, 20 years, falling down, derelict. The local council, the local authorities don't like it. They get in trouble. And like, you bought this building, it's just sat there. They're under a lot of pressure to renovate and refurbish it. So eventually they'll do that, but they take their time. And then they open and then they're empty because there aren't enough Scientologists to like go in there and, actually use all these services. So Scientology has hundreds of these empty buildings around the world that are sat there waiting to be renovated. So OT9 and 10 are never going to be released. A, because that goal will never be met. But B, because L. Ron Hubbard died before he wrote them. So even if all orgs in the world were ideal and were St. Hill size, they'd come up with another excuse, because OT9 and 10 do not exist. OT8 is the highest you can get. So you get to the top and they go, now you know who you're not. You're ready to know who you are. And that's it. They'll just keep you with bait hanging in front of you for the rest of your life.
Okay, you know what though? That's really a mean place to stop because that just leaves people then in a perpetual identity crisis for the rest of their fucking life. Okay, well, now we definitely know who you're not, but we don't know who you are, and neither do you. Bummer. I guess you just have to keep waiting.
But this is the thing, they turn it into an inspiration of like, so now you understand how important it is. If you want to get to the next step, you want OT9 and 10 to be released, like it's your duty to help expand Scientology. So a lot of OTs at this level are like desperate to grow all of these orgs, get more people in, get more buildings open, get more money in, because they won't be able to find out who they really are until all the orgs are ideal. So they're like they are responsible. They feel responsible for the growth of Scientology because they want to do it. Because if they don't, they're just left at this like horrible state of questioning.
Yeah, I used to live in San Francisco and there was this really beautiful building downtown. I took the e-meter test in college. They're like, "You're stressed." And I was like, "No shit, Sherlock." They're like, "Do you want to give us some money?" And I was like, "I don't have any." And you're asking really weird, deep questions. So I'm going to go. I got lucky. I lucked out.
I, on the other hand, signed up for it and was like, yeah, let's do this.
Yeah, Alex was like, no, I still kind of love your origin story. As terrible as it is, them preying on a teenage boy, I love the fact that we're sitting here today and we are because of that. So it's like a double edged sword, you know.
Exactly.
But I think it's, with hindsight and us being able to laugh at it, pretty funny that as a teenager, you were like, okay, I've seen this documentary that says that they're awful and that they're a terrible, mind controlling cult, but I'm going to go put that to the test because I don't need to wear sunscreen. I'm stronger than the sun. You're like,
It wasn't that. It was more like the documentary is so negative, and
biased.
John Sweeney was really like screaming and shouting, and it's kind of like, is it actually that it is this bad horrible thing, or is it biased, as you say? And that's what wasn't clear when you produce a documentary and there is footage of the presenter shouting at the guy. It's very clear that this potentially might not be an unbiased documentary. And also, I don't believe that you should follow and believe in everything you read in the media. I think you should go and do your own research and find out for yourself. And part of that is like, well, what do they have to say for themselves, right? So that's why I went in, not because I wanted to join or become a Scientologist, but because I wanted to figure out for myself and make my own mind up rather than and just believe what someone else said. I want to make my own mind up. Is this a horrible, destructive cult, as they're saying, or is it just misinterpreted, or has it been presented badly, or is it this horrible thing in America and it's not as bad here in the UK, or is it actually this horrible thing? And there are so many questions, and you go in and you go, what's this about disconnection? In this documentary, I heard that you split families apart and you force people to not speak to their own children because they don't want to be Scientologists. That sounds like a really horrible thing to do someone. Is that true? And they go, well, no, because it's a misinterpretation. There's a belief in Scientology that you shouldn't hang around or spend time with people who are getting in your way and not wanting you to succeed in life. So in Scientology, we have a thing called disconnection, where it's a formal way of disconnecting from those people who are bad influences in your life. That's absolutely a thing. But Scientology never forces families to disconnect. It's always someone's personal choice. It's your individual choice to do that or not. Which is true, but what they neglect to tell you is that when you're in Scientology, yes, it's your decision, but it's presented to you like this. Well, if you want to do the next step in Scientology, or if you want to join staff, or if you want to do XYZ, you have to disconnect from this person. We won't let you progress unless you disconnect. It's your choice. You don't have to disconnect from this person. It's up to you. But
Oh,
you
it's
can't be a
always up to
Scientologist.
you.
You can't be a Scientologist if you don't, right? So it's your decision, right? We're not forcing you to disconnect.
You just can't be in our club.
But you can't be on a club. And also, why wouldn't you disconnect if, this person is getting in your way and they're stopping you from becoming spiritually enlightened and free? Why would you want to hang out with them anyway? Why would you want to keep up a connection with them?
I know, ew. That actually brings me to a question that's somewhat apropos that I also think is pretty funny. So when we get back from this quick commercial break, I'm going to ask you. Okay, we're back. So hold on. You were 16 at this time?
I joined Scientology when I was 16, yeah.
Kudos to you for, as a teenager, watching documentaries and, trying to, deeply think about that kind of thing. I wasn't doing that at 16. I had a little bit of a different agenda. So that's very interesting to me that, I could see somebody like in their 20s or something being like, oh, I watched this documentary and I'm in college, so I'm already questioning everything. But it seems like, were you just like an intellectual kid or something?
Yeah, and I was always thinking about, when you're a teenager, you're trying to figure out who you are and what is important to you and why you're here, and you have all these existential questions. And Scientology came along. It's like, well, here's this group of people who are clearly working towards the same goal. They're clearly committed. They clearly believe in something. They're trying to help people live a better life. And yeah, there are these horror stories, but like they say in Scientology, well, the best way to find out is to just try it yourself. Why not do a course or read a book or whatever? Because that's what Scientology is. Scientology is these courses, it's these books, and there's nothing more, nothing less. So why don't you just try it? Like, it's 30 quid for a course. So you just do the course and you'll find out. And if you don't like it, or you feel like it is coercive or manipulative, then you can just stop doing the course. Like, there's no strings attached. And you think, okay, yeah, fair enough. Why not? It's £30 and not a lot of money, and I'll come in and do it, and I'll read it and see what I think. And you find out for yourself. But then before you know it, you're like however many levels deep and signing up to join staff.
How many people in your age group, though, were you surrounded by?
So when I joined, the majority of staff at the church in London were second or third gen Scientologists. So they were around the same age, maybe slightly older, but they were also around the same age as me. And that's part of the appeal for me at that age, was that they were all young and cool and like, this is awesome.
Okay.
Like, let's hang out together and we've got this community. Like, that was part of the appeal, is it's this young and cool thing.
Okay, that's making so much more sense,
Yeah.
Alex. I'm so glad that I asked you that, because I was like, what? So like some stuffy fucking adults were like, oh no, you should take a class. I was like, how did they fucking rope you in? But it's because you went to ask questions, and then it was essentially your peers who answered those questions. And they were like, not only did we just quell your doubts, but look at how much fun we're having. Oh my God. It's so cool over here.
Yeah. And this is the thing that you have to realize. So in Scientology, there's two levels of, there's staff members that work at what's called a class 5 org, which is where I was. So there's London, Milan, Malmo, New York, all of the cities have these class 5 orgs. They can deliver up to class 5 on the bridge. And then there's the advanced organizations like St. Hill and so on, which deliver the upper levels. And then there's the Free Winds, which delivers OT8. So there's different levels of organization. And the city level organizations, where anyone would join Scientology as a newcomer, they're all staffed by staff members who are volunteers that sign either a 2.5 or a 5-year contract. That's it. There is on top of that, the C organization, which is the management level of Scientology, which staff the advanced orgs, they staff the management, all of this, and they sign a 1 billion year contract.
Yeah,
It's a
I've seen
lifelong
that.
commitment. Yeah. Whereas the Class 5 staff just sign a 2.5, 5 year contract. It's not as crazy as you seem. Because
Alex, I might say that 1 billion years is more than a lifetime contract. That's like a 100 billion lifetimes or something. I don't know.
yeah,
Math.
so it's not a legally binding contract, of course, because it's 1 billion years, but it's a spiritual commitment, right? It's a sign of your dedication towards Scientology. I signed my I had signed this 1 billion year contract,
You
right?
did, and
That's
now you
how far
broke
in I
it.
was. Because this is the thing, right? If it sounds crazy, there's a billion year contract, no one would ever sign it. You have to understand, for anyone to sign that contract, you just have to think for a second of just like where your mind has to be for you to actually sign that and believe in it and agree with it. If you're signing a 1 billion year contract, you are fully in Scientology. You fully believe that this is the best way of helping mankind. This is your calling in life, because you're not just signing up to Scientology for your whole life. You're signing up for all of your future lives, because you're an immortal spiritual being that will live for millions and millions of years. So you're not just dedicating your life to Scientology for the next 60, 80 years. You are signing up, dedicating your life to Scientology, because when you die, you'll come back and rejoin the Sea organization to carry on your mission. That's how you wouldn't sign a billion year contract unless you fully believed that. So when you sign that contract, you are fully like gung ho. You are a Scientologist.
Wait, why did you get to sign one if you weren't in the Sea Org?
Because I was joining the Sea Org, I signed my contract and was on what's called a Project Prepare. It's like a program of like, okay, for you to arrive in the Sea Org, you need to do this, 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 and this. And I was ready to jump on a plane and move to Florida and become a fully fledged Sea Organization member.
And then they were like, actually, you know somebody who doesn't like Scientology, or you know somebody who knows somebody who's not a fan. So you're a PTSU potential trouble source. Skedaddle. Scram, kid. Rude.
I was director of public book sales at the Church of Scientology in London, and only a couple of weeks before they kicked me out, I got a commendation from high up senior management in Scientology thanking me for getting London to sell the most number of books the church has sold in the last 2 years, right? I broke all the records, all the stats were going up, I was doing really well, right? I was the most effective bookseller, director of public book sales the church had had in over 2 years, if not more. Couple of weeks earlier, they said, "You're doing great, thank you so much." The words are exactly, "The work you are doing is vital for Scientology, for the progression of Scientology." And then just a couple of weeks afterwards, I get a declare order saying that I am insane and I'm in this bad condition connected to a oppressive person, and I was claiming Scientology doesn't work, and I'm a horrible person.
It said you were
And
insane?
yeah, it's as per the sources on healing insanity.
I don't. What? Hold on. Okay. So, well, that brings me to another thing. Maybe your courses in Scientology prepared you to be the most effective YouTuber to save humanity.
I would love the irony of that, but I don't credit my success on YouTube to anything that I learned or did in Scientology at all. I think if it wasn't for my time in Scientology, I certainly wouldn't be here on YouTube talking about my Scientology experience. So it is very much as a result of my time in Scientology, but I don't credit my skills to anything that I learned in Scientology.
So basically, what Alex is saying to you, Scientology, is your courses can fucking suck it because they didn't do shit.
What I am saying to the Church of Scientology is you could have avoided all of this, right? This is what I would say to the Church of Scientology.
Ooh.
I was committed. I signed my SEAL contract. I was ready to go. You kicked me out. I didn't want to leave. I was pleading to stay, right? And I was upset that Scientology wasn't working, and I was asking for it to work. And then you kicked me out and said, fuck you. And then I left and did my own business and went on about my life 6 years later. And now, however many years afterwards, I realized that it was still affecting me in the way that I think. And even though I'm not a Scientologist, it's still impacted the way that I thought and processed information. Because of that, if we'd have just gone our separate ways and like kind of, cool, I'm not a Scientologist anymore, fine, whatever, not a problem. But because you kicked me out, and because it affected me so much, and because you've hurt and abused so many other people, and you've torn families apart, and you've trafficked children across the world, and you've abused and been responsible for literally raping people, right? If it wasn't for all of that, people wouldn't be speaking out about Scientology, because you split people apart, you tear families apart, you traffic children, you abuse people, you locked me in a room and told me I couldn't leave until I'd written up what I'd done wrong against the church. If you hadn't have done that, I wouldn't be sat here talking about how it's traumatized me and how horrible this experience was for me and everybody else. You could have avoided all of this by just not doing it.
Stupid Scientologists. Yeah, but I'm really glad that they did do it because, like, good on them, as the Australians would say, for kicking you out. Because, or else you would just be like a fucking Sea Org member now, preaching the good Scientology word.
If they didn't kick me out, I'm almost 100% certain I would still be in the Sea organization today.
Yeah, so I'm so glad that they did kick you out. But yeah, see, Scientology, you could have avoided the whole Ash and Alex Scientology phenomenon that is unfolding right now if you hadn't been such fucking dick tits to my good friend Alex. You were rude and you owe him an apology. But instead of apologizing, you're probably going to make a hate site about him, which we want to buy all of the domains, but there's a lot. They could buy Alex. What's your last name again?
Barnes
you never
Ross.
Say it. Alex what?
Barnes Ross.
AlexBondsross.com. Who is AlexBondsross.com? .net, .org, .uk, fucking .ca. Who is Apostate Alex? Apostate Alex. Apostate Alex is a dick.com. I mean,
they literally buy all of the domain names, right?
Yeah, and we'll do an episode about that. Also, you just dropped child trafficking and rape like it was fucking hot and then moved right on. So we're going to have to talk about that in a different episode.
Well, I think that ties into this because we're talking about the Sea organization today, right? And that's where a lot of these things happen.
Perfect. That's terrible. But I'm glad that it's all going to tie in. It's not perfect. That's the worst. But that does remind me that I have not heard about your getting locked into a room about and having. So we do need to do another episode where we talk more about you, because I think in our intro episode we did a little bit, or a second episode, I don't fucking know, but we were like, well, let's not get too heavy with all of Alex's cult trauma too early on, but we will at some point. So we definitely need to do an episode where we talk about your story and the things that you suffered that led you to this here where you are today. But that's not why we're here today. Today we're here to talk about the Sea Org and apparently child trafficking and rape. And in a future episode, we'll talk about Alex's experience and how, thank God, he's not in the fucking Sea Org. And on that note, we're going to take a quick commercial break and we'll be right back. Okay.
Hi, welcome back.
Hi. Bienvenidos back.
The Sea Organization.
Yeah, I don't know welcome in any other languages, unfortunately.
So
Welcome.
when you join Scientology, there are different levels of Scientologists. There's public Scientologist, right? If you want to join Scientology, do a Scientology course, pay, be a parishioner, that's absolutely fine. That is the majority of Scientologists. A lot of the stories you hear publicly about the trauma and abuse and horrible things that go on in Scientology are actually stories from the elite Sea organization. Now that's spelt SEA, as in the sea with waves. The Sea organization is like the upper echelons of Scientology.
The nuns and priests, as you put it before.
Yes, it's like the nuns and monks of Scientology, because you have dedicated your life and all future lives to Scientology, to working for the church for your life. So, kind of like a nun or a monk, right? You have committed to work for the church for eternity. So that's, and in the middle, you have the staff members who work in the Class 5 orgs who sign a 2.5 or 5 year contract, and they work Monday to Friday, 9 to 5 or 6, or the evenings and weekends. It's like a full-time job working for the church, but you live in your own house and you have your family and you have a job outside because you don't get paid to do it. So it's a volunteer job. And you have a post.
Oh wait, you
like
don't
I
get
did.
paid to do it?
No,
Of course
it's
you
voluntary.
don't. And
So
and can you pick 2.5 or 5 years?
yeah, so when you join staff, like I did, you can commit to either 2.5 or 5 years, and you commit to join the day or the foundation org. So the day is Monday to Friday, 9 to 6, and foundation is the evenings and the weekends. So it's like 2 sets of staff in the same building. And you commit to doing that job for either 2.5 or 5 years. And then afterwards, although you are encouraged to sign another contract and so on, you can just walk away and go back to being a public and pay to do your services and whatever. You have your life outside of Scientology, you have your family, you usually have a job outside because you still need to earn money to pay your rent and mortgage and whatever. So that's a staff member. And then the Sea Org is like the next level because you've committed your entire life to it. They provide your accommodation, they provide anything and everything that you need. You get paid $50 a week, flat rate, no more, no less.
Whoa, $50.
$50. But the idea is that you don't need money because they give you accommodation, they give you food. So it's just like a tokenistic thank you rather than living expenses, because you don't need money because the church provides everything for you.
And where would you be living as a Sea Org member?
Yeah, so Sea Org members have Sea Org berthing, so they have a shared accommodation on site at every Sea Org base. They provide your accommodation, they provide your meals, and the idea is that you work because you've committed your life. Think about it. That means you work 7 days a week. That means you work 8 or 9 in the morning until 10 or 11 at night on your post. You work it's very common for a Sea Org member to work a 90-hour work week every single week, and you don't get time off. You also cannot have a family because you've committed your life to Scientology. So if you say, I want to have children, they go, well, you can have children, but you have to leave the Sea organization because that would take your attention away from Scientology because you're focusing on raising your kids, not on Scientology. So by all means, go and have kids, but you have to leave the Sea organization to do that. And if you leave the Sea organization, you get what's called a freeloader bill, where you are given a bill of all of the servicing and training and everything you've received in Scientology for free in return for your voluntary time. You then have to pay it off. And you can't do any further Scientology processing. You can't rejoin staff. You can't rejoin the Sea Org. You can't do anything until you pay us back that money. So by all means, leave the Sea organization to have your children. But how on earth are you going to pay back a $300,000 debt when you've only earned $50 a week for the last however many years you've been at the Sea Org.
Right. And is this it's some of Leah Remini's show is coming back to me now. And is this sort of where what you could call child trafficking comes in? Because is it like if you join the Sea organization as somebody who already has children, then they put the fucking kids in like a kid area where they have like a child minder who just like basically is the parent of all of the children whose parents are dedicated to the Sea Org. Is that right?
Yeah, so things have changed quite a lot over the years, and children have constantly been a source of trouble for the Church of Scientology and the Sea organization, because there were times when you could have kids, there's times when you couldn't. There were times when if you had kids, then you could rejoin the Sea organization afterwards, and so on. So we had this thing called the cadet organization where, yeah, if you were in the Sea organization and you had children, you basically put your children into the cadet org, and they are raised by someone else who like is looking after all the kids of all the SEAL members until they hit the age where they can join the SEAL organization or adulthood, and they can go about their own business. But in Scientology now, that's not really a thing, because in Scientology the current state of play is you cannot have kids if you're in the SEAL organization. So if you get pregnant, then
You're out. And you owe us a bunch of fucking money too.
or if you want to stay in the SEAL organization.
Oh, forced abortion. I mean, it's your choice. But
It's
also
your choice, because you don't have to get an abortion.
No, but you
right?
owe us 300 grand if you don't, essentially. And you have no money from working over the last maybe decade, and you haven't built up other job experience. Also, now you have a 10-year gap in your resume, and you have a child who's about to fucking pop out of your crotch. And you owe us $500,000 for all the fucking technology we gave you, bitch. Yeah, so it's not like forced abortions.
It's not forced at all.
No, not at all. It's totally your choice. I mean, your body, your choice, okay?
It's disgusting. It's disgusting that they do this. And this is the thing, is the Scientology PR story is, no, it's a person's choice. We don't force anyone, which technically on paper is true. But actually, if you take into consideration this big thing that we all know and love called context, right? It is 100% forced, because they say it's your choice, but you can't do this, this, and this, and you can't unless you do this. So it's your choice, but you only really have one choice to make. So it's horrible, because they force people to have abortions, and they force you to do certain things and live in a certain way based on this spiritual commitment you've signed to dedicate your life to Scientology. And this is also where child trafficking comes in, because in Scientology, the belief is you're an immortal spiritual being that has lived for millions of years before and will live forever on. And because of that, there's no concept of children in Scientology, because if you're a spiritual being operating a body in the physical messed universe, well then, if you're a child, that's just a small body, right?
Right.
You are still a spiritual being that's millions of years old. So therefore, children are treated as adults in small bodies. And because of that, that means that you often get children signing their Sea organization contract, a billion-year pledge, and joining and dedicating their lives to Scientology at the age of 12, at the age of 14, at the age of 15. Because in Scientology, it's like, well, you're a spiritual being. You're not really a child. So do it. And that's how you end up with these children signing their contracts. And when you're a Sea organization member, you're posted wherever you're put. So
Hold on, question. How old do you have to be to join the Sea Org?
I believe officially it's 14, but they'll let you join at any age.
Get the fuck out.
Because age isn't a thing, because age doesn't mean anything, because you're a spiritual being.
So if you're like a super gung-ho 12-year-old, they're like, yep.
Yeah, because being a 12-year-old doesn't mean anything in Scientology. That's just the age of your physical body. You've had hundreds of bodies before and will have hundreds more. You know, last lifetime, you lived until you were 90. The lifetime before, like age doesn't mean anything because you were this old spiritual being. So, yeah, you're in a 12-year-old body, but that doesn't mean you're not operating as a spiritual being. So when you sign your SEAL contract at the age of 12 or 14 or whatever, and you get posted, wherever you get posted, they will move you to wherever you need to be. So, for example, with me, I was under the age of 18 when I signed my SEA organization contract, and I was on a Project Prepare to move over to Flag in Florida, Clearwater, Florida, and work at their head office over there. Now, it was my choice. I signed up to do it. That's what I wanted to do. But if you look at it legally, if I had done that and had arrived and gone, that is child trafficking, because they are moving me as a minor from one country to another to work for the organization.
For
even though
free.
it's for free, even though it's something that I wanted to do and I agreed to, right?
Mm-hmm.
By definition, they are trafficking children.
Well, yeah, because by definition, when you're 16, you're a child. Okay. All right, hold on. Let me
And
take
also
a
remember,
okay, yeah. Also
just
remember.
very briefly,
Mhm.
also remember that the SEA organization are the upper levels of management in Scientology. So because you signed your billionaire contract, you are trusted with more responsibility. So you could have, at the age of 16, a SEA organization member. That means you're an executive. So you as a 16-year-old could be running around, bossing around 70-year-old staff members because you are higher up than them in the organization.
Oh, yeah. That's a lot to process. So on that note, let's take another quick commercial break and come right back to, oh my gosh, talk more about this. This is fucking cuckoo. Okay, we're back. All right, so I'm 14.
Doesn't this just keep getting better and better, Ash?
Oh, so good. No, I'm not being super funny in this episode. I think it's probably because of the child trafficking. It's thrown me off a little bit. It's not as funny as L. Ron,
Believing Jesus is a
OTA.
pedo.
Okay, yeah, but we'll just give that one part away, you guys. Elron said Jesus was a pedo, so if that doesn't catch your attention for episode 7, I don't know what will. It's kind of upsetting, actually, for my OCD-ness that OT8 is episode 7 and not episode 8. Okay, that's okay. I'll survive. But okay, yeah. So Sea Org. I don't even know. Keep telling me. Good God. Good God. Good God, man. I don't even know what to say. I turned into a Scottish man. I don't know what happened.
Excellent accent, Ash.
Was it? No.
I think it was good.
Oh, cool. Thanks.
So you sign your SEA organization contract. You've pledged to work for Scientology for your life, for eternity. You have to live by a very high ethical standard, right? There's no sex before marriage.
Hold on. Wait. So wait, did you get a bill? No, because you just signed your contract, but you never went into the Sea Org.
Yeah,
but if you had ended up, you still got a bill?
Yeah, because if you, even as a volunteer staff member, like I was in a class 5 org, you still get servicing and processing for free. And so if you leave your contract before the contract is over, you are meant to pay back everything that you...
So you got a bill?
I was supposed to get a bill. I never got a bill. And I was supposed to. And I think the reason I didn't is because I actually had money on account. So they actually owed me money, not the other way round. because I'd paid for more servicing than I'd received over time.
Oh, because you don't get it for free.
So you do get it for free as a staff member, but you got to remember I was a public member of Scientology before joining staff, and I paid for servicing, and I also was buying books from the church at wholesale cost and then selling them, so I was making commission and so on. So I didn't get a bill, even though it says I'm supposed to. And in that document I showed you earlier, it says I will receive a bill. I never received it, and it's a suspicion, but I reckon the only reason I didn't get the bill is because actually they owe me money rather than the other way around.
That's fucked up, man.
Yeah.
Wait, so you just told me that you had to buy books out wholesale and then sell them at retail to get a commission. Also, you're technically always trying to get people below you in a sense, because you're trying to get people to join the organization. So are you telling me that Scientology is also a fucking MLM?
100%, right? There's a thing called the field staff member, an FSM, right? If you are a Scientology parishioner, you're not a staff member or SEAL member, you just pay to go and do your servicing, right? You are encouraged to get other people into Scientology and become a field staff member. And all that means is once a week or whatever, you will go out and sell books, right? With a bunch of other people. So my job as director of public book sales was to get people like the field staff members on board to come out with me every week to sell books. And in return, you'll get a 10% commission on any sales you make, to say thank you, as a gesture, as a token.
The people below you that were coming with you to help you.
Yeah, but that also means that like you'll get a commission on anything they do. So if you sell someone a book for £13, yeah, you'll earn £1.30. Doesn't whatever. But the big money is if you then like coach and mentor that person and help them get up the bridge, and they end up doing OT8 or whatever, right? Then they're going to be spending $1 million and you will get 10% of that. So actually you can become quite wealthy as a field staff member if you put the work in and encourage and help people to get up the bridge. It's not a common thing that's done at every single org all the time, but it is something that is done. And there are these people in America particularly known as power FSMs. And it's a very small group of people.
Is it like a power bottom?
Well, yeah, it's like a power of its own. Like they've made it their life's work to make this their job, their livelihood. And there are people who make seriously good money by introducing people to Scientology and coaching them, mentoring them, getting them up the bridge and living off their commission.
And Scientology is okay with that?
It's Scientology policy because there has to be an incentive to get you in and get you up the bridge and get other people to do the same.
Well, I just titled this episode. Come on, brainwave, buddy.
Scientology is an MLM.
Are you fucking joking me? Bitch! And look, you guys, okay, last time I said I just named this fucking episode after Alex said a very long fucking ridiculous string of words and sentences to me. I said, I just named this episode, and he said, oh, Jesus is a pedo. You guys.
Elron calls Jesus a pedo.
Because I can't just say Jesus is a pedo as a title, because I think, you know, rightfully so. Some of my listeners could get offended. I get that. So I gotta preface it with Elron says. But yeah, so you guys, I've literally like on the spot named the last two episodes, and then Alex guessed them exactly. We are like fucking Xenu.
We're OT
connected right now or something.
We are OT.
Are we OTing?
Uh-huh.
Oh my God. We're so down with OTT. Operating Thetans, you know.
The OTT. Give us the T.
Thetans.
We're spinning the T, right? We're spinning the T.
Oh.
We're giving you the OTT.
Oh my, that's way better than what I meant. No, yours is way. Oh, that's really good.
We're spinning the
You
OTT.
down with OTT? Yeah, you know me. Oh my God. Okay. I didn't even know what we were doing there, Alex. And it was your gosh, you guys, this guy over here. Huh? Smart. That's what this means. Now we're just twirling mustaches. Everybody's like, what is happening? All the people watching.
Anyway,
Anywho.
yeah, the Sea Org is nuts. And to give you a little bit of, and this might be a good actual point to round this off for this episode, is a little bit of history of where the Sea Org came from. So the reason it's called
Hold on.
Yeah.
You said there's rape in the Sea Org.
Mm.
You didn't talk about that.
Not just in the Sea Organization, but in Scientology. Scientology itself creates environments in which that can happen. In Scientology, because you believe you're a spiritual being that has no age, therefore it brings into question the idea of consent and age of consent and so on, because there are situations where Sea Org members or people who even aren't in the Sea Org, just Scientologists who are like 30, 40 years old, will be dating a 14-year-old because age doesn't mean anything because you're an immortal spiritual being. So it's not that Scientology promotes that, but it's something that Scientology allows to happen, right? Because that's just the way it is, and the nature of when you take that belief to that extreme, you can see how that would be allowed, right?
Yeah, no. Okay, definitely. I'm like, oh, I totally get how they would see it that way, which makes it sound like I'm condoning it, and I'm not, because it's absolutely fucking disgusting. But I see why
This
they
is the
could.
thing.
I see why they could fucking pass it off as that.
This is the thing. This is what makes Scientology horrible. Is a lot of it makes sense, right? And that's how it gets away with it, because when you present the information in a certain way, or you say it like this, or you think about it in this way, it makes sense, and you kind of think, okay, that's how they get you in. Like with the disconnection thing I was telling you about earlier, of like, you don't want to hang out with your friends, and therefore that's why this happened. You kind of go, oh, that makes sense. It's the same all the way through Scientology. That doesn't mean it's correct or right, but when you present it in that way, you think, okay, yeah, well, I can see now why that can be allowed to happen.
Right.
Because if you have a group of people that believe that you're immortal spiritual beings, and this is just the physical universe, you pick up a body, and at the end of your life you drop it and you pick up another one, well, then therefore that means you don't really have an age, and therefore that means as a child you are not a child because you're an immortal spiritual being. And so therefore, what does that mean when you have a group of people that believe this, and you have someone who is in a high up position of the church with authority and power at the age of 30 or 40, and you have a 12 or 13-year-old child who is being audited by this person who looks up to this authority level person, this adult, right? And that person perhaps wants to manipulate or use their power in some way. Well, if the belief is that age isn't a thing because you're a spiritual being and you're just in a small body, you can see how that can lead in to something really horrible. Even if the teaching in Scientology itself isn't that should happen, you can see how the group of people can end up in a position where it's allowed to occur. And that's what makes Scientology particularly harmful, is that it creates environments where these things can be justified and can be allowed to happen.
So let me just double check that I got all my facts straight. Technically, you could be 40 and I could be 14, and we could both be in the Sea Org, kind of killing it at Sea Org stuff, and people could look at us as like a Scientology Beyonce and Jay-Z. They'd be like, oh my God, look at that adorable power couple killing the Scientology world. Even though you're 40 and I'm 14, because we're both just we're just a couple of OTs trying to live our lives and save the fucking planet. You know, it's like, who cares about a 36-year age gap? Right? I mean,
yeah. And what most
26.
What a lot of people might even do is say, how great is that the 14-year-old has come back, right? The belief would probably be that the 14-year-old was a SEAL member in a past life and dropped her body or his body and came back into Scientology, and as a child realized that they've come back and they're ready to continue on their contract and join the SEAL organization so young because they've realized that they need to carry on their billion years. And so that's even better.
Man, this episode is just like more upsetting than the other ones have been. You were so funny, Alex. What happened? Now you're just
Scientology gets dark. It's horrible.
Oh my
And it is fucked up.
God. We have like been able to keep it a little bit light on the bridge, and whew.
Well, I can let's maybe make it a little bit lighter by giving you a bit of history before we wrap up here, because this is where I think you might find it slightly amusing, is
Real
where
quick.
the SEAL came from.
Okay. So before we wrap it up, let's take one more quick commercial break on that super giant bummer of a note. Yay! And then come back and we'll lighten it up a little bit before we leave you, so that we don't just like leave everybody hella fucking bummed out for the rest of the day. Okay, hi, we're back. I just realized that, I mean, I guess that's what most serious podcasts and YouTube channels do, is they talk about it seriously. And that's the reason that I can't talk about it that way. It's not because I think any of this is fucking funny at all. I don't find an ounce of... the whole Xenu thing is pretty fucking funny. But it's not funny at all if you're somebody fucking in Scientology who believes in that. And the fact that there are people in Scientology believing that isn't fucking funny whatsoever. But for me, if I talk about this stuff and we end it on, you know, like a serious note, because that's the style, then I'm going to go be, and not that it's like, I'm like, but shouldn't I be bummed out? But no, I can't live my life and continue to do the things that I have to do if I continuously leave the work that I do having it weigh on me. And if I'm talking about it in such a serious manner of like, all right, guys, so that's how Scientology explains pedophilia, and we'll see you next week. Like, I'd probably go, I don't want to say anything too crazy, but it just wouldn't be good for my mental state. I'd go into like a major existential depression. So kudos to you and other people who can talk about this stuff without bringing any levity to it, because I think both ways of discussing it are super important, because people digest information in different ways.
Yeah. And I think it's a delicate balance, right? Because these horrible stories of abuse and so on are very real things that happen in Scientology, and it's very important to talk about them, and it's very important not to gloss over them, and it's also very important to take these things seriously. You cannot joke about these sorts of things. So when talking about Scientology, you have to tell those stories, because that is the message that has to get across for people to realize the reality of what this group actually does, right? But to make it real to people and to get people to understand it, you have to look at the bigger picture, which is where you can bring humor into it, because it is kind of funny when you look at the Xenu story, or you look at the OT8 story and L. Ron Hubbard believing he was the Antichrist and Buddha reincarnated. They've already listened to this episode. They should have already listened to that. It was the one before this.
But maybe they didn't, Alex.
Well, if you
I'm like,
didn't,
spoilies.
go and watch it. But look, this is the thing. When you look at it like that, it is funny, right? And it is fucked up. And that's where you bring in the humor. Because as you say, if you did a podcast that was all doom and gloom all the time, people would switch off and people wouldn't care. They'd be like, oh, yeah, I heard about Scientology. It's all really bad.
Right.
And that is true. But if you can lighten it up a little bit and say, isn't it wild that they think this? Or isn't this wild that I did this when I was in Scientology? Isn't it wild that blah, blah, blah? People can relate to it and find it funny and therefore understand things a little bit better, and therefore hopefully the message will reach more people that it does actually hurt a lot of people as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Is there days that you get off of doing serious streams and stuff that you're just really heavily affected and kind of brought back to certain times or feelings?
Yeah, there are moments. I mean, it was a wild ride to go on, and therapy was really, really helpful. And I think the overarching thing when I speak to people is looking at why we're doing this, right? Why I'm talking about it. It's because I want to relate to as many people as possible and share my story and get people to understand my experiences and give other people a platform to do the same. So, you have to find the lighthearted stuff, and it's important to present those stories, but also look at how funny these things are. And, for example, the Sea Organization, it allows these horrible things to happen that we just talked about, but how the Sea Organization came about is fucking hilarious. Why the Sea Org even exists, and that's where you have to bring the humor in, right?
And a billion-year contract. When you just say that out loud, sounds pretty hilarious.
It is
Like,
hilarious.
what?
You don't sign a Sea Org contract just off the bat. You only sign that when you're already committed. So that's the thing. When you're in that headspace, it's not wild, it's not fucked up. But when you step out, and you've been out for however many years, and I'm sat there thinking, hold on, as a teenager, I signed a 1 billion year contract committing all of my eternity to this organization. That's fucked up.
That's crazy, dude, and super fucked up. Yeah. I do have a question. Do you think that talking about it in a lighter manner like this is therapeutic?
Yeah, to some extent. But I think for me, the therapy more is the sense of purpose, right? And knowing that even if one person listens to this that is on the fence about Scientology, or someone who is in Scientology and perhaps wants to leave or whatever, if I can just help one person through this, that makes everything I'm doing worth it.
Yeah. Fuck yeah. That's also how I feel about my channel, but a little bit more broad. It's usually kind of like, I feel like for me, laughter is the best medicine. So if in a day I can make somebody laugh or learn something or feel a little bit less alone in this digital age and lonely world that we can live in, then I'm like, okay, then I feel that my job has been done. So, we just want to help you guys. I mean, we just want to deliver the technology in all of the different ways that might be the most palatable.
Yeah, absolutely. So before we round off, let me just give you a little bit of a brief summary as to how the Sea Org came about and why it's called the Sea Org.
Yes, please.
In 1967, the L. Ron Hubbard, founder of Scientology, was on the run, right? He had spent time in America. He had moved over to the UK and was living at St. Hill Manor, the UK headquarters. And essentially, he was wanted by multiple governments around the world, by the IRS for tax fraud and evasion and so on. He was wanted by the UK government, supposedly didn't want him here anymore. And I think it was Rhodesia or somewhere like that also didn't like it. Like, multiple governments and organizations were after him for things like tax evasion, for fraud, for profiting personally from all of these people that are paying for spiritual services. And also, I believe the FDA were after him because he also claimed to be able to rid people of their sickness and so on with Dianetics and auditing. So the FDA were after him for those claims. So there are lots of people after him. And so he had no choice but to go on the run. And he bought a ship called the Flying Scotsman, I believe, which he then renamed the Apollo. And the flagship Apollo became his base. He went out into international waters with a bunch of his most loyal, dedicated, committed followers, who were then, they formed the original Sea organization. And it was run kind of like the Navy. They had uniforms. They still do to this day. And as much as there is to the ship the Free Winds, Sea Org members operate the management levels. So at Flag in Clearwater, at St. Hill here in the UK, even on land bases, they run around in their little fake Navy paramilitary uniforms.
Alex, pick me.
You.
Okay, remember when I was like, I bet he took from, not only cults and religion and stuff, but government and politics. Here, this mother. I mean, I learned about the Sea Org when I watched Leah's series, but I forgot that. Yeah, that obviously they did the whole fucking Navy thing, which is also totally ripping off the government. L. Ron did he go by Ron or like what did he go by?
So he was called LRH. He was called Ron. He was called Hubbard. He was called Source. He was never really called Elron. That's only what people say outside of Scientology. He was LRH or Ron.
I'm like, Elron, which sounds like ELRON.
Yeah, everyone outside of Scientology calls him Elron. It's actually L stands for Lafayette. His full name is Lafayette Ronald Hubbard. L. Ron Hubbard. LRH.
Who the fuck abbreviates the first name instead of the middle? That's so stupid.
Wouldn't you abbreviate your first name if it was Lafayette? No offense to people called Lafayette, but come on. I can see why they dropped part of his name.
I would just drop it, dude, and go by Ron Hubbard. You're just confusing everybody. That's what I mean. With the
most people refer to him as Ron, right? That was his name.
Okay.
People said Ron, but you would also say LRH, and on the books it says L. Ron Hubbard.
Did they call him Captain Ron on the boat? Commodore. They called him Captain.
Actually, he was Commodore. Yeah.
Commodore Ron or Commodore Hubbard.
Just Commodore.
Oh, okay, whatever. So this motherfucker stole from legit, because it's so funny because I'm always like, damn, Ron wrote the like OG fucking cult book that everybody stole from, but he kind of did, but he was really good at stealing from everything and everyone. I don't want to give him too many props, but
it's one giant farce.
It really blows my mind, though, that with him in so much legal trouble, that the organization was able to continue running after he died. It sounds like it started off super sketch, so I'm surprised that it continued to run successfully after all of that. Fuck you guys, Scientology.
And fuck Scientology.
Fuck Scientology. That's it for us.
Well, thanks everyone for tuning in. If you're watching this on YouTube, go and check out That's So Fucked Up, the podcast. Ashley, as you can see, is a lovely, awesome person, and she talks about stuff not just Scientology related. She talks about true crime, about other cults. She's got over 50 cult and coercive group type episodes. She's got MLMs, all of that crazy stuff that I know you guys all love to hear about. So go and check out her podcast if you haven't already, and go give her a like and subscribe and all of that stuff on Spotify or Apple Podcast or whatever you use for that.
Thanks, Alex. That was such a good shout out. And if you're listening, please go subscribe to Apostate Alex on YouTube, because not only does he do this segment with me, but if you want to hear him talk to other former Scientologists and other experts and other cool guests besides me. You guys hear me all the time here on the feed. Ashley again. Oh, blah, 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 blah. You know? So go check out Alex. Apostate Alex. I don't know if there's like a website. Not or there's
ApostateAlex.com. You can go buy merch now.
yeah. And TSFUthepodcast.com. You can also buy merch there. And we're going to have a joint t-shirt coming out soon. And it's going to be dope as
Exciting
shit.
stuff.
So wait for that. And we'll see you next time for Ash and Alex do Scientology. Signing off, Captain.
Doing it and doing it and doing it well. Doing it and doing it and doing it well. Doing it and doing it and doing it well.
Ash and Alex are doing science.